Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, welcome back to my greenhouse. My name is Joe and welcome back to part 2 of this video about visiting the cactus show and sale in Schweinfurt, northern Bavaria. And this second video in particular is about those plants that I just simply could not leave behind at the sale, the plants that I had to take along and add to my collection here in my little cactus and succulent greenhouse. So if you're keen to see that plant haul, if you're keen to see those plants, then stay tuned. This is the video for you. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to this part 2 of the video visit to the local cactus show at Schweinfurt in southern Germany. That was part 1. This is part 2, where we're taking a look at plants that I managed to pick up as a little plant haul from that local show. I asked you at the end of part 1 to this video about your views, about your guesses for plants that you think I could have picked up from that show, and it was really fantastic. Thank you for all your responses. Huge amounts of energy and huge amounts of engagement. Really fantastic responses. Thanks so much. And let me actually summarize a little bit. It's one of the reasons that it's taking a little bit longer between the part 1 and the part 2, because I decided not just to roll out, here's the plants that I actually got, but to also incorporate those responses that came in the first week after that video was posted. And I took some notes. It's actually fantastic because you did a great job. A lot of you did a great job in guessing. However, let me first of all say that the vast majority of you actually thought that I was going to pick up an agave, and that was in parts due to the fact that I was, silly me, I was in that video, part 1, throughout the video, holding a wonderful little agave utaensis in my hand, and that, of course, folks, was a little decoy, because yes, it's a wonderful plant, and had it actually been available there, I think I would have actually gotten that one, but I did not get it, and I did also not get any agave at all. Now, the vast majority of you did guess that I was going to get an agave, so sorry, thank you for playing, but you got it wrong, I'm afraid. Maybe the next time at the next show, because you are actually pretty close. I am a huge fan. I love agaves. I love special agaves, and I have a whole collection of them myself. But this time, I'm afraid that was the wrong answer. Also, a lot of you were actually guessing that I would have taken along a Phaerocactus. Again, great guess, because I'm a huge fan, as you know. That's why you guessed it. I'm a huge fan of Phaerocacti, and I have quite a collection of them, as a lot of you know. There were some nice plants at the show, but I decided this time around, no Phaerocactus, okay? Sorry. Some others guessed that perhaps that very spiny Echinopsis would have been something to take along. And I was very tempted to take that one along indeed, but the price just didn't seem right. I could not get that plant down to a price that I thought was going to be acceptable for me to take along. And I also actually have a wonderful specimen of Echinopsis pachinoi myself. I decided that plant was going to stay at the show as well, and some other lucky person with probably deeper pockets than mine was going to pick up that plant. Now, some of you also guessed that I might have picked up one of those wonderful Ubelmanias. And you know what? Actually, when I was actually filming, I thought, wow, I've got to come back to this table and I've got to get one of these Ubelmanias because they really looked beautiful. And as I was then a couple of days later editing the video and I saw the Ubelmanias, I thought, oh no, you know what? Joe, you forgot to go back to that table to pick up one of those Ubelmanias. Well, I don't know what the cost would have been, so maybe that would have stopped me from buying one of those anyway. But yes, I did want to go back and get an Ubelmania. I didn't because simply I forgot. Now, before I actually show you the individual plants themselves, let me come back to one of the viewers out there who actually got it pretty right, with exception of one of his guesses, but two of the three were spot on. And the viewer who wins this video's competition is at Plant Fun. I'm not sure whether you're aware of this channel. I can only give a big shout out to at Plant Fun here on YouTube. And I'm not 100% sure of the name of the channel owner. All I know is at Plant Fun, you've got a fantastic channel. I love your plants. At Plant Fun is from New Mexico and has a beautiful series of videos on that channel and also wonderful plants. Go and check out that channel if you like, because I can really recommend just browsing through those wonderful videos and the wonderful plants that are featured there. At Plant Fun, you have also made two correct guesses. And those are, first of all, yes, I did get an Ariocarpus, although one of you also said, nah, I don't think you'd get an Ariocarpus from somebody else, presumably because you've seen the video where I'm showing the Ariocarpus fissuratus collection I have that is entirely grown from seeds. Now, you are right, I don't usually like to buy those plants off others, but it was a great bargain, I thought, and I did get myself an Ariocarpus. And so congratulations, that was the first one you guessed right, an Ariocarpus. And the second one you got right is you guessed that possibly I would pick up a Copiapoa. And indeed I did. And you'll see shortly which one that is and what it looks like, okay? Now, there is one more viewer out there who actually also guessed the genus of a plant that I brought home very well. And that is at Mao Composer from El Salvador. And you were guessing that I would bring home a Euphorbia. And right you were, I did. Well done, thanks for guessing, and well done for guessing that one correctly. So once again, huge thank you to all of you for playing, for throwing in all your guesses. It's great to see, first of all, how well you actually know me and my collection. And yes, although I this time did not get an agave, this time did not get a Cactus, they would normally be among my favorites, okay? So well done. So that's it for the sweepstake, if you like. And once again, thanks to all of you for playing. Let's get on and take a look at the actual plants now that I got. So let's start off with the first plant from the plant haul, and that is the Ariocarpus. Look at this Ariocarpus retusus. It's a very mature, beautiful specimen, and I was really very tempted when I saw the plant, and even more so when I heard that this plant was on offer for 25 euros. And so I thought that is a wonderful, wonderful bargain. And I just had to get this beautiful plant. And I'm really looking forward to it hopefully flowering for me in the autumn, because that of course is the, usually around end September, October. That's the typical period that Ariocarpus cacti would actually be flowering. And one of the tricks to Ariocarpus, they're not really at all plants for novices, for beginners. I really have to warn you, they're very popular. And so the prices have also really gone up because people are, they're very sought after plants, very unusual cacti. They, do not have any spines, and the flowers are absolutely magnificent, absolutely beautiful. But one has to say, these plants, do require some quite special cultivating environment. Not easy to grow these plants at all indoors. Best in a good, warm, sunny, bright climate, not too high humidity, but also okay in a greenhouse. These plants also, they require, quite late watering in the spring, but then good watering, a quite prolonged dry period throughout the summer months, and then once again good strong watering in the fall. And that's when they also actually then start to develop and show their buds and wonderful flowers late in the year. So they're typical fall bloomers. Okay, so that's Ariocarpus retusus for you. Which takes me on to the next plant, which is again, very, very unusual cactus. A very unusual plant that was only discovered in the last 1 or 2 decades. And look at this plant. If you see this, would you think of a cactus? Quite unlikely, I think, unless you're a real cactus nerd. And, if you are familiar with this plant, and of course, there are some very, very good cactus growers out there. Anna from Cactus Caffeine, of course. Anna, as you know, I've been a big fan of your channel for many years. And Anna, you were commenting about those wonderful Astrophytum caput-medusae at the show. And, I had exactly the same reaction. I thought, wow, those are beautiful plants, especially because you very frequently only see them grafted. These, however, this one is on its own roots. That's quite unusual because these plants are very sensitive to overwatering, and they obviously have to be watered extremely carefully. They are plants, as I said, they were discovered only about, I'm not sure exactly which year, but in the last 2 decades. And they were originally, because they're so unusual, they were described as a totally new cactus genus, Digitostema caput-medusae. Caput-medusae means the head of the medusa in Latin, and that's really what these individual little tubercles they are look like. And if you look carefully, let me just bring this up to the camera, you can see that maybe you can see that these plants actually have these little white spots, if you like, on the epidermis, on the outer skin, which are quite similar in appearance to some Astrophytum cacti. And DNA analysis in the last couple of years have actually shown that this plant is not a genus of its own, but is actually a member of the Astrophytum family. Astrophytums, you're probably quite well aware of, wonderful plants, and they, of course, are nowhere near looking like this with these individual long tubercles. But the flowers, when you actually see and compare the flowers, say, of an Astrophytum ornatum or myriostigma, quite similar to the flowers of this caput-medusae. And if you look closely, you can actually see up close here that there is, can you see that? Here maybe. You can, let me bring this to the camera. You might see that there is a little bud. Now here, bringing it up closer, you can probably see there is a little bud developing there. And as soon as that's in flower, I'm going to show you, of course, this wonderful Astrophytum in bloom. Okay, so here you go, Astrophytum caput-medusae. I'm really, really proud to be the owner of this plant growing on its own roots, and I hope that I can successfully continue to grow it and bring it to flowering. Now, folks, the next one, again, a very special plant. And now it's Copiapoa time. Look at this wonderful, wonderful plant. It's a Copiapoa cinerea. It's a quite rare and sought after Copiapoa. Again, Copiapoas have become extremely popular and sought after, and the prices have just skyrocketed in recent years. And the worst of all, because of that demand, that huge demand by hobbyists and growers, there's also been a lot of looting of natural habitats, and there's been a lot of destruction of natural habitats in Chile, in the Atacama desert regions of Chile. And really a plea from me to all of you out there, never ever buy plants from suspect sources, from sources that are not verified and where you have a feeling that the plants might actually have been taken out of natural habitat. Avoid sellers like that are offering plants online, and never ever get into deals with them, apart from the fact that it is highly illegal and there are huge fines for people, rightfully so, if they are caught. But just think about the moral side as well. It is really part of our responsibility as growers, as hobbyists, to protect these plants, to be growing plants from cultivation, and do not actually add to the huge pressure that is on to these natural habitats of these wonderful plants. That actually leads me on to a topic that was touched on in one of the comments in the comment section on the last video, and that was that plants are sometimes offered at these shows at very, very low prices, and whether that was okay or not. Now, my view is, if these plants that have been cultivated, grown from seed, cultivated, hopefully all in cultivation, if those plants are actually offered at reasonable prices and are in that way, able to help decrease the pressure that may be out there and that is out there on plants being looted from their natural habitats, I think it's a good thing if those plants are actually offered at good, either cheap or reasonable, whatever your view is, prices, because as I say, we should be focusing on buying and growing plants out of cultivation, definitely not on plants that are coming out of their natural environments, out of their natural habitats. So a plea again to all of you out there, we're responsible as hobbyists, as growers, for growing plants from seeds, growing plants from cultivation, and avoiding buying any plants that could be coming out of natural habitats. All cacti are actually protected under CITES, and that is to ensure that these plants really should not be extracted from their natural environments, let alone sold. Now back to this wonderful Copiapoa cinerea. When I saw it, as I said, I thought, oh my goodness, what a wonderful plant. There's got to be a catch. It's either going to be the price and or something else. Now the price, I was actually very favorably impressed, very positively impressed, because the plant was being offered for a very, very fair 40 euros. And the reason, of course, is when you turn the plant around, this plant is not in perfect condition. As good as it looks from the front, look at the back of the plant has quite some scarring, and that looks as if the plant actually was quite severely sunburnt at some stage, and therefore the scars, of course, you know, they are very visible. But, you know, I'm quite happy to be actually owning this plant. It's definitely a plant out of cultivation. You can see that from the spines. You can see that from the whole habitus. And and I'm pretty sure that this plant, with the right cultivation, is going to, you know, slowly, that sunburnt, scarred part of the epidermis is going to not be that visible in future, because, of course, cacti grow, as you know. The youngest part of the plant is up in the central growth axis, and the epidermis slowly moves, if you like, downwards out. And so the youngest part of the plant, also the new spines, they come out of this central area, and the oldest parts of the plant are at the base, where usually there's a fair amount of scarring and you know, corking, as it's also called, this kind of brownish cork-like, bark-like, thick part of the epidermis that is no longer green. So there's also no photosynthesis going on there. And that part of the plant, of course, as I say, is the oldest part. I think this plant in a couple of years is going to be immaculate. Like the rest of the plant, that scarred part at the back is not going to be visible anymore. In any case, whether scars or not, to me this is a perfect plant. It's a wonderful plant that, if you like, I'm quite happy to have rescued from, you know, whatever fate it would have otherwise had. And I'm also quite happy to rescue the plant, if you like, with all its scarring, and cultivate it to a you know, one day plant without any epidermis scars. So I think this was a real highlight, a real gem that I was able to pick up for myself from this plant show. And I'm really very proud to be able to add this to my very small collection of Copiapoa plants. Now, talking of cacti with wonderful, wonderful spines, Copiapoa obviously are in that group. Ferrocacti have among the most spectacular and most beautiful spines in my view, but there's also in a beautiful group of cacti a genus called Gymnocalycium. Many of you will be familiar with this genus. It's actually a genus of cacti that is very, very good, very recommendable for for novices to our cactus plant hobby as well. But make no mistake, there's also quite a number of Gymnocalyciums that are not that easy to grow, and also not that easy to find among, you know, in cactus supermarkets or plant supermarkets, plant stores. There's a couple of Gymnocalyciums which are very commonly found there, and they're great, and they have beautiful flowers. But there's also in that genus plants that have just the most amazing spines. I love those. I've got a couple of those Gymnocalyciums, and one addition to that collection, if you like, of super spined Gymnocalyciums is this little fella here. Look at that. Now this is, let me just take out the plant label, and it's Gymnocalycium hybopleurum variety ferocior. So that variety name, you know, gives it away. They're pretty ferocious spines that this variety has. And indeed, just look at that wonderful, wonderful plant. Isn't that a real beautiful Gymnocalycium? Okay, on to some other succulent plants. So not belonging to the family of the Cactaceae, the cacti, but succulent plants from other families and other genera. And one of those beautiful types of succulents that I couldn't resist getting, you probably saw, you might remember from that video of the show, that there were some beautiful living stones, lithops, being offered. And among those pots of lithops, I discovered little gems, I thought, in my view anyway, some lithops that were beautifully colored green, quite unusual. And I thought, wow, I've got, you know, brown colored, gray colored, the, if you like, quite commonly found colors of lithops, but these green colored individuals I thought were really, really special. And so, of course, these were on none of your guessing lists. Can't blame you. I would have not thought that I'd come back from the show with some lithops in my plant haul, but when I saw these little green colored gems, I was instantly falling in love with these plants, and I got them for a very, very fair price. I think it was like €4 or €5 per pot. Now, staying with the non-cactus other succulent plants, this is a genus that at Mao Composer from El Salvador, one of the viewers out there, you got it correctly. You said, you predicted I would have picked up a Euphorbia, and this is a very special Euphorbia. It's a codex forming Euphorbia, a succulent Euphorbia, Euphorbia bupleurifolia, and it's a wonderful, wonderful specimen. Look at that. Awesome plant, and a beautiful addition to my collection of succulent Euphorbia. If you like these plants as much as I do, and you'd like to see a couple of those that are in my collection, then I've got a dedicated video, one actually that summarizes, if you like, the Euphorbia, or a number of Euphorbia from my collection. I've got another video that actually focuses on the flowers, the blooms of these very unusual, beautiful plants. These, for those that are interested and those that are unaware, Euphorbia, of course, are succulent plants that come mainly from Africa, but also the Arabian Peninsula and even the Indian subcontinent. And there's even Euphorbia from Asia and the Americas. Very rare, but there are some. In contrast, cacti, of course, they only grow originally on the North and South American continents. Beautiful, beautiful plant. A wonderful addition that I'm very happy with adding to my collection of succulent euphorbia. I also picked up 2 beautiful Echinocereus plants from a cellar, from a table that was focusing on winter hardy cacti. 2 Echinocereuses that are beautiful additions to my little collection of Echinocereus species, and these 2 I was really happy to pick up, and I'm really looking forward to their blooms as well. Now, last but not least, I'd like to show you a very mature, beautiful rescue plant, if you like, that I got. And you might remember, some of you might have seen that in part 1 of the video, I showed plants where I sort of jokingly said, wow, I wonder how many decades ago that one has last been repotted. And it seems like those mature plants had actually toppled over, probably like 2 decades ago in somebody's collection, that collection that was now being sold off. Presumably the previous owner had passed away, sadly. But those plants being sold off, I guess the person selling off also found in perhaps that greenhouse that these plants have come from, plants that had fallen over, toppled over, and had grown in, that unnatural state, in that unnatural position, with the toppled over pot and the plant, of course, wanting to grow straight back up again. But over the years and perhaps decades, of course, quite some deformation. And here's what I mean. Here's a plant, a beautiful Notocactus. Now, of course, all Notocacti are referred to as Parodia. They're part of the genus Parodia. And this particular plant, let me just carefully take it out of this. You can see, actually, let me carefully put this down here. Just look at this. You can see that the original pot that the plant has been growing in, it's actually, broken the pot in 2, because it must have been growing in there, for the last presumably 15 or 20 years, and the pot was clearly had fallen over, and the plant went from horizontal into back growing into vertical mode. And so we've got this very absurd shape of the plant, in its pot. And I must say, I felt very sorry for this beautiful old mature plant that not only deserved a new owner, but also deserves better than, you know, growing in this crooked way out of a way too small pot. So I'm going to be in the next couple of days taking this plant carefully out of its old pot, and I'm going to try and repot it in a way. I'm not 100% sure yet how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to try and repot it to bring it more or less back into its natural vertical position. And I'm going to try and, you know, give this plant, if you like, a well-deserved second part to its life, maybe third part, not sure. It is a very old plant. And what's exciting is the plant actually also has already developed little flower buds up there in the central growth axis. And, you know, I'm really looking forward to seeing the blooms of this wonderful mature old plant. And I'll show you what the repotting and, you know, how I go about that. I'll try and capture that in a video perhaps and show it to you. So that's something to maybe look out for if you're interested in the future on my channel. But anyway, this is what I wanted to show you, this beautiful mature specimen of a wonderful Parodia / Notocactus. And it could be, I'm not 100% sure about the species. It looks like a short-spined version of a Verazi. Not 100% sure. I'm going to double check on that as well, and I'll let you know when I put out that video about the repotting of this wonderful old plant that has grown in a very unfortunate position for the last probably 2 decades or so. Anyway, thought I'd show you that wonderful rescue plant from my cactus haul of the plant show in Schweinfurt, southern Germany. Well, there you go. That's the selection of plants that I simply couldn't leave behind. I really had to take along and add to my collection. Let me know if you like those plants, if there were some that you would have said, well, you know, that's not one that I think would fit into your collection. Why on earth did you get that one? And why not this one? You know, any comments you have, any suggestions, just let me know. Post them in the remarks section below. I'm always curious to hear back from you, and I'll always do my best to answer. It may take a few days, maybe a week or 2, but I promise I will get back to all of your comments and questions that you may have. That's it for today. I would like to thank you for joining. One thing I forgot to say was, if you liked the video, of course, as always, give me a like, leave a comment down below, and if you haven't yet done so, please subscribe to this channel. That would be hugely appreciated. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much for all your support. Hope to see you very soon again. Stay safe. Until then, happy growing.